Mr. David Trahan, thank you for joining me.
What's up, man? How you doing?
Doing just fine, man. Let's get this going. Tell me, where were you born?
I was born in River Ridge.
Okay, so right outside New Orleans.
Mm-hmm.
How was growing up down there? And when were you born?
1976, man. It was quiet. It's kind of a place unto itself. River Ridge and Harahan neighbor each other. Harahan is its own municipality, so and it's not on the way to anything. It's right up against the river, near the Huey P. Long Bridge on the East Bank, and so it's kind of an out of the way place. And you get that feeling, when you're around there. There's neighborhood ball fields and not a whole lot of traffic or commerce.
Yeah, I lived in River Ridge. First job out of college, I moved back down there. It was a rental property, though. I mean, we traveled to Winn-Dixie and back, but the traffic on Jefferson did get pretty bad, in the evenings. But that was in 2008. When did you leave River Ridge?
Well, so my parents got divorced when I was about 9, and so where does that put us?
85, or excuse me, yeah, 85.
Yeah, about 85. So when my parents got divorced, I stayed in the same house for a little while, and then my mom eventually met somebody, remarried, and we moved. And we moved to Kenner for a little while. Stayed there for a little while. They ended up selling that house, moved to Metairie, and that was near where Al Copeland lived, up against the lake as opposed to the river now. And that's where I spent my preteen into teenage years.
Okay, were you drawn to anything in school growing up?
Good question. I mean, at that point in my life, I excelled scholastically. And I wouldn't say necessarily that I was drawn to anything in school in particular, but I found it easy to get through, easy to come by. I was in gifted and talented classes, and I can't really say at that point in my life I had a goal or anything. You know what I'm saying? I was kind of young, but yeah, that was it. I mean, I guess average kid, above average student, but just average kid playing in the streets until the lights came on, like we all did.
What about music? Where did your passion for that begin?
My mother played piano all my life, and I think I took like a summer or two piano lessons, and I really liked it. I didn't keep going to music theory classes, but it kind of stuck with me. And there was a piano in the house, so I always played that. My grandmother had a piano in her house, so when I was over there, I would play there too. And it was just something that I always did for no reason at all. And it was the kind of thing that I felt different after I sat down and played for a while. Like super calm, real peaceful.
Yeah, I do. I've got a piano in the other room, as a matter of fact.
Awesome.
All right. So getting through high school, did you attend college? Were you scholastically driven to that point?
I'd say high school, I started screwing off a bunch. Caught a big attitude, like I guess around puberty, and then on to high school. My mother didn't want me to attend public school, which at that time would have been Bonneville, because at that time we were living in Kenner. And she was not at all happy with Bonneville, so she decided that she wanted to put me in private school. And private schools are it's like a microcosm of reality. It's a tiny little patch.
Which one did you attend, if I may?
Yeah, I went to Ridgewood,
Okay.
a Ridgewood preparatory school,
Okay.
and so you have to be accepted. You go for an interview, and what books have you read recently, and all of this other stuff. So um, and by that time, like I'd already had my brushes with not the law quite yet, but I was on my path, and still found it fairly easy to, not pay that much attention in class, but get by, and make decent grades, if not above average. So that's what I continue to do. But like I said, with private schools, it's not reality like when you step out your door. It's unto itself, and there's still like little cliques in private schools, just like in high schools, public high schools, and things of that nature. It's just on a smaller scale, so the lines are more, I guess, defined, and you're either in or you're out, and I just found it more accepting and easier to get along with people that were into doing bad shit, I guess, or using drugs and things like that. So I just kind of hung out with those guys because it didn't matter you weren't on a football team, and it didn't matter that you threw the greatest parties. You could just I guess how would you put it? They were less judgmental than most, I guess.
Yeah,
That's
just
where I
hanging
found
out.
myself. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So I guess that's all I could say about the whole private school thing. Um, that's just happened. I just happened to find myself within that group of people, and I didn't. I didn't really spend a lot of time with many of the people that I went to school with outside of school, if that makes any sense. Maybe two or three. The rest of my friends were either from the neighborhood or from other schools with like minds, things like that.
Did that lead you to college?
But yeah, believe it or not, I did go to college, and I was in there for just under 2 years, and I had to work at the same time, keep a job, and I don't know, man. It started to piss me off, honestly. I was interested in biological sciences and didn't really care much for mathematics or anything in that field. And I had an A in math and a D in biology. And it was, I had determined that it was because you basically were tasked with just memorizing as much information as quickly as you could possibly memorize it and then regurgitating it for a test. Whether or not it resonated with you didn't matter. Whether or not you understood it didn't matter. And it was sink or swim, and it started to be kind of disheartening, and I got distracted.
So did you end up dropping out and going straight to work?
Yeah, I did. And I was working the whole time I was going there, and it was a frantic pace. Sometimes I would drive out to UNO and catch a class, um, leaving work early, and then going back to work afterwards for a few hours, and then leaving again and going back for an evening class. Um, it was really hectic. Yeah. But after I decided to drop out, um, I guess I realized that I better work hard full time and it's something better, making more money than these little part time things that I could scrape together in between classes, because it wasn't going to pay any bills. And I knew that I wasn't going to be able to stick around my parents' house, my dad at the time. I wasn't going to be able to stick around there or expect to stick around there, because it was kind of like the unspoken rule, you're here because you're going to school, and I'm trying to help you do that.
And then where did you end up going to work, or how did you end up? I think you said you worked offshore for a little while.
Yeah, I did. So by the time I was 18, I was living on my own, and right before offshore, or leading up to offshore, I was working at a loading dock in the Clearview, Elmwood area, um, and making decent money. I guess whatever I could do at the time, and it was better than construction because leading up to that, I had what did I do? I was working in industrial construction. I would get in turnarounds at plants, refining plants, and it's bust ass work and a whole lot of it, and then all of a sudden there's nothing. So um, when that happened one too many times, I started working at warehouses nearby, and that's what I was doing right before I got the offshore job. I'd been applying for the offshore job and calling those people for the better part of a year because I didn't have any experience, so they didn't really, they weren't chomping at the bit to get with me. But I would keep in touch with them and call them damn near every week for the better part of a year, and finally they gave me a job. But I think I was working at a printing place, printing labels. It was a warehouse, another warehouse in the Elmwood area.
How did you hear about the offshore job? Because I grew up in the same area, but it was never even a thought for me.
Okay, so I got laid off from the loading dock and filed for unemployment, and you had to go through their office to file, and you'd check in with them, and they would let you use their computer, which had directories of nearby places looking for employees, and they also kept track of your progress that way, et cetera, et cetera. And one of the jobs that was listed in their database was for it was a listing for a hiring fair for Tidewater Marine, and so I believe that was in Homa. I want to say it was in Homa. They held it at a hotel in a conference room, and that's how I found out about it, and went there and jumped through all the hoops and all of that good stuff. But still had to keep calling them constantly because, like I said, I had zero experience, so I was probably bottom of the totem pole at that point.
So tell me about working offshore.
It was exciting for me at that point in my life. I mean, obviously, it was a huge bump up in pay. There was just a complete change of atmosphere. Aside from the obvious, being on the water and such, uh, this is a place that you go to and stay there for a month. There's no more traffic going to work, traffic getting home from work, car trouble, this bill, that bill. You set them up and knock them down as far as bills go, and then you leave, and you're out there for a month. And looking back, it was kind of a turning point for me because at that time, it wasn't like I was out robbing houses at night, but I mean, I was just up to no good. Like my spare time was spent at that time in my life, um, getting high or drunk or just hanging with other people that had zero goals and maybe less than me or less going for them than me. I was brought up around people that had strong work ethic, and I didn't disagree with that or try to live my life any other way. So I always held a job, and it was usually in construction or working on vehicles or whatever I could do, to make some money. So I wasn't scared of the hard work, but it took away from me all of the negative elements that I allowed myself to be around constantly, which was staying up and out late all night, especially, on the weekends. If you didn't have work, you'd stay out until daylight downtown and all over the city and just doing shit that you shouldn't have been doing. So it gave me a chance to not only dry out as far as not drinking every other day or every day, but and you had to stay drug free to keep that job. So those were two things that I had to change in my life, which for a lot of people maybe that's not a big deal, but for some people, if the other way is a way of life, then you look at that like maybe not. Some people shy away from that sort of thing, but I went with it, and it also showed me that a month later when I got back, I could check in with the same friends that I had before I went on a boat, and they hadn't done shit. Nothing changed. Everything was the same. So, for the 4 weekends that I would have had to have been out all weekend blowing money and getting loaded, I realized that I didn't miss anything. It's like time stood still. And I wouldn't have been privy to that perspective had I not started working on the water.
Let me backtrack a little bit. I skipped a question. What were your parents do for a living?
My dad, all my life, was with the phone company. It was South Central Bell, and then got bought out by AT&T. And my mom has done secretary work, worked in offices for as long as I can remember.
So, was there any family in the maritime industry?
No. I later learned that I think like my grandfather's cousin was a mariner, but um, no, there was no other influence uh, aside from finding the listing while at the unemployment office.
It
I had
just
heard the kind of I had heard the kind of money that they made, and at that time, working at a loading dock, operating a forklift and picking orders and whatever the hell you were doing was, probably wasn't 7, 8 bucks, maybe $9 an hour. I can't remember, but I mean, it was barely enough to pay the bills. I remember one time on the way to work, I didn't know what it was when it happened, but the uh, the AC compressor froze on my truck, but I didn't know that's what it was. Um, it just started screaming because the AC compressor froze, and so the belt started screaming, and my truck stayed parked at that warehouse for damn near a month because I figured out what it was and I knew how much it cost to replace it, and bills were that tight, so I couldn't have been making any kind of decent money, working at those places. And I had heard people that worked offshore made a bunch of money, so that's what drew me to it. Honestly, in the beginning, was just financial reasons.
okay, but you said it was just kind of happenstance and curiosity. You saw the listing in an office and went with it.
Um, at that time, I was my attitude is whatever it is, just fucking murder it. Whatever it is. If that's what you want, then murder shit until you get it. If that's what the problem is, kill it. Like just go at it until one of you dies. And so when it came to, they're like, use this computer. And I mean, shit, at that time, Tim, I don't think I even had a computer. I mean, people had computers, but they were a little pricey. I didn't have a computer. So they're like, use that, see what you could find. And, I did. I did what they told me to do and found something. I had done very little, I think, temp work because, I mean, that's what happens to people that go through that process. They get bounced around at temp agencies and things of that nature. But I just kind of shook the bush until something shook. And then that's what came out the other end.
Yeah. How long were you offshore?
Um, I worked for that company for 5 years. Um, they ended up laying off a bunch of people. I was one of them, and then they folded, um, which was crazy because they were, I thought, a really big company at the time. I mean, they had a bunch of their fleet was flagged foreign, and I thought that at that time meant that they were a strong company, but maybe they spread themselves too thin in hindsight. But yeah, I was with them for 5 years. I got to travel overseas, and I got to see just like huge projects. We would go out and be involved in setting up new drilling rigs, um, demoing old drilling rigs. The size, and I had worked at refiners and stuff before, so I'd been up close with industrial operations on a large scale, but that was just a whole new animal offshore. And I'd come home with pictures to show relatives, and I'd point to a speck and I'd be like, you see that speck? That's a person, to give them some sort of perspective. But the reality was you couldn't you couldn't capture it. I saw things out there that I'll never be able to see again, in nature and in industry. And yep, 5 years. It sounds like 20 the way I speak about it, but it was only 5 years.